Hi guys, how are ya? I am going to hop right in over here. Hopefully, there we are. Back into part 2 of analyzing Ronnie Watts' interview. Now, the way she spells it is either British or somewhere. A lot of people won't claim her. I thought that she was Australian, but the Aussies won't claim her. The Kiwis won't. The Brits don't think that she's theirs, and quite a few creators, I guess, have went and tried to help her understand that she has things backwards, but it didn't work. And so I'm just gonna go right back in here because, like I say, I really think Papa Ronnie is a nice man. I don't think that he deserved the things that she was saying about him. As we heard last night, she was saying that he must have a really, really low IQ and etc. etc. While she's simultaneously saying that he is this raging narcissist that went to court standing behind his wife who was there to get all the money. She has it flipped because it wasn't the Watts going to court for the money. It was the ruse. And I have to say that, you know what, in all of this, I was confused too, because when I said that Ronnie missed Christopher so much when he moved out to go to college, that he developed a little drug problem. Well, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Well, I meant the Coca-Cola, name. I didn't know that Lucy in the Sky was like acid. So I mixed that up. I meant to say like Coca-Cola. You know, the main ingredient in Coca-Cola, like in the turn of the century, and before they had to take that out. You know, that's the thing. I think it's like how Coca-Cola used to actually have cocaine in it, and that's why it would, rev people up. So was that the original silly sticker that give somebody a little drink of that? Who knows? But anyway, let's go in here and let's talk about how Ronnie Watts, she thinks, is a big narcissist, and I don't think so. So I've got my hot tea here. I found a really good blend. Is it by Soyu? But it's you can get it on Amazon, and it's called Egyptian licorice. You know what? I'm gonna tell you guys this because it's very important. Yogi tea. But you? What's wrong with me today? Alright. So it's yogi tea, and it's called Egyptian licorice. And it says it's warming and naturally spicy and sweet. And so I know that half of you just gagged and they're like, ew, licorice? Do you mean like black licorice? Ew, who would want that in a tea? I understand, right? I wouldn't think it'd be good either. But if any of you have ever went to an Aveda salon and have had their Aveda tea, this is, if this isn't what they're buying, it's very close to it, but for a fraction of the cost. You have to buy it in bigger quantities. So Aveda tea is like $20 for a very little box, whereas this I had to buy six boxes of 16 tea bags in there. So quite a lot to get a good price on it. I think it was like 25, so I got many more tea bags, and I only did it because on Amazon it does say it's like a dupe for Aveda tea, because that's what I've always been looking for when I try to recreate, because I just love that tea, but I can't afford it. I did it in the loose leaf style, the tea and the packets, and it doesn't even taste that good at home. It's like they have some kind of magic at Aveda where it just smells so wonderful and everything. But this is really good. So the Yogi Egyptian licorice tea, it's not like you taste the licorice. You taste that spicy and sweet, but it's not spicy like some ginger is, because I'm a real wimp about spices. It's just really good. It tastes like kind of minty, and it is caffeine free. So it's a good nighttime tea. Excuse me. I know that we have, the people who say that I have that baby talking, blood curdling voice. So it gets better as I talk, apparently, she said. So maybe as the hot tea goes down, it calms my spasmodic, blood curdling voice. Who knows? Anyway, without further ado, let's go here. Okay. Hello. Hey.
Ronnie Watts seems to be unsure of Chris's innocence,
Okay, hold
and
on,
yet he's speaking out about Shanann and about her murdering the child. Hello. In the last video, I talked about how Ronnie Watts seems to be unsure of Chris's innocence, and yet he's speaking.
Okay. Oh, ma'am, not this again. She starts right out. She says that, you know, Ronnie Watts. Hold on, I had you muted and stopped. What did you? Oh, I only muted you. I didn't stop you. Oh, hold please. We're gonna go back. Let's just start all over. She says that Ronnie Watts doesn't. He goes back and forth from believing in Christopher's innocence or not. Doesn't everybody? I think even Christopher Watts does. We don't know what happened. That's why he should have had a trial. That's why he shouldn't have been able to just. Well, I mean, obviously it's his right to confess to whatever he thinks happened, but he still says that he feels like somebody was behind him doing it, and that he was overtaken by a demon. Oh, he doesn't even know. Shouldn't the demon be on trial if that's his whole excuse? He forfeited his right to a trial by jury, everything. And they stopped the investigation, and there's so many questions. And he didn't have time to talk to his father. When he was talking to his father, Tamburglar swooped in, as we all know, and cut that conversation straight away. So, is it any wonder that Ronnie Watts wavers back and forth between wondering of his son's innocence or not? I don't think that that's problematic. I don't think that makes him a big raging narcissist with a low IQ. And that's the thing. Narcissists are slick. They are the kind that, work at a car dealership or like a dealership that sells like fancy wheels and has the music and the clothes and the lifestyle, and they dress nice and have reptilian eyes, and they can suck out your soul with just one little glance and make you love them, and they smell good sometimes. Narcissists can be quite alluring. They're not generally dumb. So anyway, here we go. Oh, I was still muted. What is my... Okay.
This video, I want to explore why that might be. The way he talks about Shanann, he shows a lot of contempt. And yet, to Shanann's face, it seemed he liked her. He seemed to act like he liked her. So what's really...
What? What are you referring to, ma'am? Are you referring to in videos? What are you talking about? Because obviously we're talking about times where he is not face-to-face with her anymore. And the last that he heard from his son, as you showed us the Holy Grail, that Christopher may or may not have written that letter that said, if anything happens to me or my kids, I didn't do it. I wouldn't hurt myself or the kids. Check out my wife. So Ronnie Watts, no, why do I keep saying Ronnie White? Why? What's my problem? He knows that Christopher had been confiding in him that something wasn't right. Remember all of the drama around the wedding, to the point where Christopher had been this wonderful son that they got along with. There were no problems whatsoever. She came in and all of these fights started, and the gaslighting where they said that Christopher's sister didn't actually send out the invites versus nobody wanted to attend her festivities. To the point where the Watts weren't invited to the wedding. So is it any wonder that Papa Ronnie is not going to think of her as this wonderful... I'm at a loss for words as to how this woman thinks, but here we go.
Really going on? Does he like her? Does he hate her? Where's the truth? And I think for someone like Ronnie, the truth gets a bit lost.
No.
Cindy would show her feelings towards Shanann, and it sounds like it could be very passive aggressive. So with leaving the nuts out, that sounds like she was really trying to make a point that was going to upset Shanann.
Oh, and how was that to make a point to upset Shanann? To dare to question her when the girls were over and they were playing with their cousins that they had never even met before, when they're out having fun. They're playing in the sunshine, having the time of their life, and Shanann comes out and says, "It's nap time, girls." Looks around. They're sleep trained. They can't be out of their routine. Come on, girls. And Cindy says, "Oh, let them play." Oh, that's her being passive aggressive? Oh, okay. She dared to question Shanann Watson. Anybody and everybody apparently knew that was a big no-no. Okay? Napgate was the day before Nutgate. Now, Cindy Watts was simply giving the other children ice cream when Shanann swooped on her and accused her of trying to unalive her daughter, called her father, and said that there's nuts all over and razor blades all over. And you want to say that that's Cindy acting passive aggressive towards sweet little Shanann? You have it backwards.
Whereas her husband, Ronnie, doesn't seem to have expressed it. Ronnie got on well with Shanann. She didn't have a problem with him. It was always Cindy that she had a problem with.
Oh. Okay. What? You're saying that Ronnie got along with Shanann just fine, but here, just a minute ago, you said that it seemed like Ronnie acted like he didn't like her, but then was nice to her face, but didn't. You look as confused as I look right now. If I had a mirror, we are mirroring each other. So in this therapeutic session, which you are not a therapist, even though you're like sitting there to like make people believe that you're like a therapist and stuff. You are not a therapist. You profess yourself to be a coach for those who have been abused or are currently abused by a narcissist. I'm concerned for the people that you're coaching because they're going to be very confused too. I'm not at fault. You've obviously never encountered one of these freaking snakes. And if you have to this point in your life, ma'am, you were born under a golden star because you don't want to be around these slithery snakes. You don't know what... maybe they've been biting you. Ma'am, are you sitting on a snake?
And Jamie sometimes. But Ronnie would be nice to Shanann. That's what I understand from I've also read all of the Discovery
from what? Did you pull it out of your ass again? From you've also read the Discovery. You read the Discovery. Well, then if you read the Discovery, then you saw the whole thing, and you saw that it wasn't that Papa Ronnie just saw, "Oh, my son was denying his wife of sex, and she didn't know that there was anything wrong." No, you might have seen the whole entire freaking manifesto that she wrote and about how stupid he is. And maybe you read, too, about how Shanann beat his ass all the way outside and put him out on the porch until he could behave. What about those things? I don't know that I would like that in a daughter-in-law, but, you know.
Files, and I've seen the text messages from Shanann, and it seems that everything she's said and that other people are saying suggests that she and Ronnie got on well, but he's willing to throw her under the bus, and that might make sense if it was just to get his son out of prison. Well, she's dead now anyway, so if he blames this on her and it means his son is freed, maybe there's something that that makes sense there for a parent whose son is going to be in prison for the rest of his life. But I don't think it's that simple. I think that he would have pushed her under the bus anyway. When Cindy was...
Okay. Now, you are the same woman who put up the letter that you did not say was manufactured. You put up the letter that you said that Christopher Watts sat down with his father the night before he went back to Colorado from North Carolina as he was talking to his parents, and he wrote the letter that you put up, ma'am, that said, "If anything happens to me or my children, I did not do it. Please investigate my wife." In other words, Christopher Watts was afraid he was the one who was going to get whacked. Okay? Now, I put that up on my community page because I had never seen it. I had heard of it. I hadn't seen it. And I heard that the Shiners say that Ronnie Watts crafted that letter on the way there. There is some discrepancy in the date at the top. Like, Christopher did not date it, and when this all went down, he either quickly added a date or somebody else did. It's argued that the date looks like a more feminine writing. A lot of back and forth there. Nonetheless, ma'am, you're the one who put that up as factual. So if you saw that, you would know that before Christopher Watts went back to Colorado, he was afraid of either himself or himself and his children being unalived. That's very serious. And this should have went to trial because then Pappa Ronnie, Cindy, Jamie, they all would have gotten up on the stand and attested to whether or not Christopher Watts sat down and wrote that letter and what his state of mind was. What made him write this letter? Did you guys encourage him to write this letter? What other things was he thinking? How did he think? What made him think that he was going to be unalived of all things? You also said that you thought that it was a surprise that it was a divorce. That doesn't make sense with that letter. It doesn't make sense with what Shanann's co-worker said. Nothing here makes sense with what you're saying. It's not consistent. You're confusing is all. Okay, I'm going to try again with you, ma'am. I'm going to try again. Okay. Here we go. We're just going to sit here having a conversation. Okay, here we go.
Was angry with Shanann. Ronnie would follow suit. When Cindy didn't go to their wedding, nor did Ronnie. And even...
Okay. What? Ronnie would just follow Cindy around, huh? So whatever Cindy did, then he would just follow around. Okay, you put anybody in the position that they were put in. Whether it was the wedding, Nutgate, or Napgate. You're seeing this woman act out of control. You're seeing this woman treat her kids like crap. You've seen how this woman prioritizes herself, her needs, her routines above everybody else. And you've seen your son turn into somebody you don't know. And you think that he's just blindly following his wife because she's saying that this is weird. And he's like, oh, I really don't know what to do because I'm so low IQ.
Even though he could be so nice to her, I think it would be easy for him to turn his back on her.
Huh?
As long as Cindy had a problem with her or Chris had a problem with her. I'm going to read an example of him doing just...
Jeez, okay. Where do I want to say here? Okay, so you've seen these, ma'am. You have seen these. That means that you are... Oh, my God. If you have seen these, ma'am, what's your problem? What's the matter with you? You have seen these. How can you possibly... Christopher Watts is the narcissist. Prior to this, nobody had ever said one bad thing about Christopher Watts as a father, as a husband, as a boyfriend, as a student, as a brother, as a mechanic, as an Anadarko employee, as a lover, as a friend. Nobody had ever said anything bad about him. The opposite is true about his wife and her behavior, and her consistent behavior that was irresponsible, risk-taking, dishonest, and downright cruel to the way that she was treating those girls with her flowers in the attic-esque parenting. So you've seen these. So this is a text that she is pulling, and this is a text that Shanann wrote, that I narrated on the Watts Discovery series. That's why I recognize it. And it basically says here, so it starts, words I wanted to say to her and your dad for his stupidity. No one stands up to your mom and your dad for that. He's just as guilty by not doing anything. I have nothing to do with him. Stop sharing memories of his grandkids. What does that have to do with me? They are F King. Okay? And it goes on. So she knows that Ronnie has seen these. These were going on when they were in North Carolina. When Shanann's texting her friends, oh, I took a shower and yeah, I'm spotting and I'm barfing and I'm dizzy and, dehydrated and yeah, and everything. And he won't pork me. And I haven't cranked out a turd in 3 weeks. I mean, he won't have sex with me. Isn't he a husband? Doesn't that make him a bad husband? And she's doing this to each of her friends because she has to have all of that narcissistic supply, because one person telling her, oh, poor you, what a turd bag he is not enough. She had an endless need of narcissistic supply. She was an emotional vampire. She was hoovering. She's an emotional vacuum. There was never going to be enough people agreeing with her, because narcissists have this big outer core, but fundamentally they have very low self-esteem, so they need that constant reassurance. So Shanann was the absolute narcissist, and there were probably other comorbidities going on with other, at least personality disorders, if not something else organic, such as bipolar. Now, how can this creator have seen this come from Shanann and know that the dad saw it and be saying what she's saying and have 131,000 subscribers? Do they all subscribe because they're just confused too? I mean, because I've been noticing this on the YouTube, is that a lot of people subscribe just to watch the shit show. You know what I mean? Like, if there's some people fighting, or somebody's being really outrageous and breaking the terms of service, you're going to see their sub counts go way up. They're not going to get monetized. They're not going to stay on the platform for long. But you see people just rush over to the other side. You start seeing their things just popping like popcorn, right? So maybe that's what it is. Because I'm a very small channel, as we know. I can't make much of a difference in this ocean of what she's spewing of misinformation. All I can do is just throw a little stone and make a little ripple towards this gigantic, freaking huge tsunami that she's got of misinformation. But through these things, and I have the most amazing community and subscribers. I don't want to call you guys like subscribers. It's so weird because I feel like you guys are all my friends. We talk so well and intelligently. If there's any questions ever, you guys pose them so nicely. And I'm just so blessed at how wonderful you guys all are. So with our community that we've formed together of the gray thinkers, where we don't see things as black and white, we look into the gray, and in the gray is where we're finding the truth. Maybe you will all be able to recognize when somebody doesn't know what they're talking about, but they look and act like they know what they're talking about. They have a lot of subs, and unsub and run from people who are giving misinformation and mistruth. Wherever you see it, I was misled by somebody last night. I thought that they were somebody different, and somebody said, no, that person actually did this, and I was like, what? And I unsubscribed right away. So I'm guilty of it. Like, I don't realize sometimes, because I started my channel in last June. Been on YouTube for years, but not seriously. So I know what happens, and I could still be on channels that I don't know, that are not completely straightforward. But as I've learned, and I've learned that, I was a problem in the beginning because I was saying things that were untrue, and I went to search out answers and whatnot. And so I believe that we can make a difference. And we're starting. Here we go again.
That. These were texts sent by Shanann to Chris after the...
What does that have to do with me? They are King with our kids' feelings, and I'm not okay with. I am their mother, and I will protect them. I have enough to worry about. Okay, really? Yes, Papa Ronnie saw this. And you think that Papa Ronnie couldn't make his own decision to say that, you know what? She's a raging frickin'...
Anyway. Nut incident in North Carolina when...
This is a very concerning text. This was one of the ones that shook me to my core. Where Shanann says, they are fucking with our kids' feelings and I'm not okay with. I am their mother and I will protect them. I have enough to worry about with the world out there. I'm not going to worry about family. I will just remove it. What does that mean? When somebody says, I am their mother, I will protect them. I am not going to worry about your family seeing them. I will remove them. How are you going to remove them? What does the word remove mean? If you say that you are going to remove a person, then you're not a bodyguard in a strip club where you need to remove somebody from the premises. You're talking about removing children from a family. These are really cryptic words when you look back on everything.
Cindy had put out...
And I think that that's where the letter came in. Where Christopher... Okay, for what we see, we have no idea what she was threatening him. We have no idea what she was verbally saying to him. We have no idea what she was blackmailing him with, etc., etc. You know that I have feelings about some of the ways in which she was filming. Some of the angles when she was having Christopher perform the nighttime care of the girls. She could very easily have set that up to be a blackmail situation and saying that he was doing something that he certainly wasn't, but by the camera angles, it could be argued that there was. We have no idea. We have no idea what she was going to do, but we don't know what she was threatening him with. We don't know what exactly this meant. But with his parents and sisters seeing it, they all were freaked out enough that they didn't want him to go home. They didn't want him to go home alone with her. They wanted him to stay. Her parents wanted her to stay in North Carolina, but she said no because Chris has good medical insurance for the girls. So Ronnie saw this. I think that Ronnie would then be adult enough to form his own opinions on what happened here, and he could form his own opinions that he was not fond of Shanann, and it doesn't mean that he's not being fond of Shanann to please his wife.
Nuts in front of Cece. Apparently she'd offered her ice cream with nuts in it. There was some dispute about whether that really happened or whether they were all just eating nut ice cream in front of Cece. Either way, there were...
Okay, let's talk about nuts here, okay? I've had enough of nuts. I've had enough of the smelly nuts, the hairy nuts, the nuts that were either hanging in somebody's face, hanging in Cece's... The nuts, okay? The nuts. I think that the problem is that one person was nuts. And that's all that it was. There were no other hairy, smelly nuts around. There was one person who was absolutely nuts, and that's what this boils down to. Okay? Boiled nuts. She just said that Cindy was feeding the other kids ice cream with nuts or nuts around. What the? She just said something weird. As this is all played out, I heard somebody else say that she was giving the other kids pistachio ice cream in like single cups. And I'm like, oh, that would be kind of a cool thing from the East Coast, because I don't know about many things about the East Coast. That'd be great if they had little single serve pistachio ice cream, because the only time I've had pistachio ice cream is when it is in Spumoni. Okay? So I'm thinking, that'd be good. Starbucks now has pistachio lattes and stuff, and I think that they're rather good. A little kind of not sweet enough for me, so I add a little extra vanilla or a couple extra pistachio things, but they have pistachio frappuccinos too, but that just tastes like water. So anyway, there were no nuts. People came forward and said, no, there was no pistachio ice cream. There was no nothing. Basically what it was is that when Shanann would command, when she would go over to, well, this was her first time back since she fled to Colorado after the whole unfortunate embezzlement accusations. She gave Cindy a list of things that she could have around Cece. And because everything was not taken out of the house and the house wasn't remediated for anything that might have been around something, but then she goes around with her MLM stuff and opens packages of things that were not guaranteed to have not been made around nuts, and she had arguably the largest container of peanut butter ever in the empty pantry of hers. Either way, she acted way out of control. I'm going to tell you guys a funny. Okay, here's a funny for you. My microphone was turned around. I'm sorry if you guys weren't hearing me. Okay, so I'm sitting down at dinner. My son's girlfriend's out with us, and she's talking about how her little nephew, had to go to the hospital the week before because he has an allergy to nuts. And the grandma put some peanut butter in a recipe, and the child is allergic to nuts, and so she forgot about it, and so the kid got really sick. So here I go through my brain real quick, like peanut butter. What would somebody put peanut butter in that you wouldn't remember was in? I mean, like I know that, isn't there like some kind of like Asian, like a thicker than soy sauce, a peanut sauce. I think it's peanut sauce, right? Or I think it's like peanut butter and soy and oyster sauce. I don't freaking know, okay? That they do something like that. So I'm thinking something like that. So I was like, oh, well, what was she serving that she forgot that she put peanut butter in? She has peanut butter bars. So I'm like, she forgot that the little one would get sick if there was. She's like, yeah, well, she just figured that he was allergic to nuts, not the peanut butter. And I'm like, well, what happened? Well, he got sick, and they started noticing that his throat was kind of swelling up on one side, so they had to take him to the emergency room. And I was like, oh, did she get mad at her grandma? She's like, no, why? No reason. And get this, the grandma was a nurse. A retired nurse. But I'm just like, I mean, that's kind of like, it's kind of how a normal family would be. It's like, seems like the allergies of our generation, are something that are just getting worse and worse. Because of the other, it's a long thing, but because of the other allergies that we're exposed to every day that we don't realize that we're actually allergic to. But I mean, that it happened in that family, and it was what it was. And it didn't turn into what now the whole world knows about the Watts, and they see Cindy Watts as trying to take out Cece, because that's what she was accused of. But then it's argued that it wasn't actually tree nuts, and it wasn't actually. And the thing is that Cece was on prophylactics for the allergy as well, because we know that Shanann was giving her Benadryl the night before. We know that she was giving her Benadryl. as Cece had some questionable things in her blood, in the autopsy, that could be pseudoephedrine, a very old nasal decongestant that really isn't used anymore and would not be appropriate for a child of her age, but could explain some of the behaviors we saw in her. And then she was on Singular as well, and omeprazole. And the omeprazole, I think could be helping minimize some of the mast cell activation. So I think that she would have enough on board that she's not going to react if somebody near her had peanuts in their ice cream. I don't know, right? I mean, Cece wasn't sick. Cece wasn't having an emergency. Cece wasn't needing the EpiPen. Cece wasn't needing a 911 call. I mean, if it turned out, this big, terrible thing happened, and God forbid, and the ambulance was there, and all of this, and in haste, Shanann said something like, "I can't believe you did this to her." Okay, it'd be understandable, but then the next day, apologies would be made, and I just don't see that the allergies were as extreme as SW made them to be. And for nothing to have happened, for her to have accused Cindy Watts of attempted unaliving, it's ridiculous. I think that the Watts have a right to not be fond of Shanann at that moment.
Later, some nuts on the table, apparently. And you're going to hear the sound of the sea, I think, because I'm right next to it. So sorry about that. It can't be helped.
Oh, you're by the sea. Okay. So where? Because nobody wants to claim you.
Truth came out last night. I didn't create no dagger, but...
Okay, yeah, this is weird because it's like the truth came out last night. This is how Shanann, she talks kind of... She skips words. Maybe she's saving them up for a rainy day. I don't know. Truth came out last night. I didn't create no dagger between you and your dad. That was done by your mom and your dad, and I won't change a thing. Okay? So, ma'am, you are seeing that these are going on, and Papa Ronnie knew about them before this happened, as this was going on in North Carolina. Yes, okay, yes, all around. Sure we go.
Between you and your dad. That was done by your mum, and your dad and I won't change a thing. So I think she was spot on here, that it didn't really matter what had happened between her and Chris's dad. She knew that Cindy was the one with the power over what Chris's dad did. And
what? Oh, no. Oh. Spot on. Yep. Shanann, you just really cued in on that. Yeah, spot on. You're spot on there. Oh. I'm speechless.
Chris's dad hadn't been in touch with him since this argument. So it sounds like Chris had accused her of creating a dagger between him and his dad, so ruining their relationship. My daughter's life is way more important, and you'd better believe I wanted to say a whole lot more than I did, but I was being the bigger person and protecting Bella. I didn't tell your dad not to come to party. I didn't tell him not to text or call your daughter on her birthday. I didn't tell him to start acting like he only has 2 grandkids instead of 4. I didn't block your family on Facebook. He did. Myself and your kids have nothing to say to them. They do. They owe your kids their life. Your parents' home isn't a safe zone. Your mum isn't safe.
Okay. What we have here, ma'am, is classic triangulation. Favorite sport of the narcissist. The narcissist is wise enough to never take on 2 at the same time. The narcissist separates, divides, grabs 2 on their side, and then goes 2 against 1. So, of course, she isn't going to go and put herself against both. She is going to focus all of the anger on one with one. So she wants Chris to go against his mom first, and then she'll work on the dad. Your mom isn't safe. They owe your kids their life? What kind of weird kind of. That's like. That is actually a term used in cultures that believe in honor killings. That is precisely the wording that I just heard this amazing woman give her testimony in what she had lived through, repeated abuse. And she has started a foundation to stop honor killings. And she said that in her culture, the kids are born and the kids owe their lives to their parents. I mean, it's some twisted thinking. This is not the thinking of a sane, ordered person. This person does not have their thoughts in order.
You can let them tell you what you want, but I didn't tell anyone to stop loving your kids or acting like it. He did that, not me. So Chris's dad has actually blocked them on Facebook because of this nut incident. You can believe I created this dagger, but I didn't do that. I stood up for our kids. I advocated and protected our children.
Oh, yes, Saint Shanann. You just stood there like this beacon of hope for all children and stood up for them and warded off the potential threats of unaliving. You conducted yourself with such decorum that mothers on Facebook groups about nut allergies talk about you to this day.
I don't ever want to hear, I'm sorry I killed your kid because I was stupid. That would kill me.
Now, this was in a series of stupid, you're stupid. If you want to continue to be stupid and live with your stupid parents, and you can keep your stupid self here, and you can live with your stupid parents, and you can be stupid, but you can't come and be stupid around me because your stupidity is going to unalive my daughter. So, how is that Chris Watts a narcissist? How is that his parents being a narcissist? Didn't you say, ma'am, that your definition of a narcissist is acting entitled? And what they are owed? Yes, ma'am, I believe you did. Let me see my notes here. Let's see here. Let me see. You did say, did you not? A good measure of a narcissist is to see what they believe they are entitled to. Well, this pretty much sounds like she is acting like the most entitled twat on the face of the. I mean, Watt on the. Her last name was Watts. Entitled Watts on the planet. Entitled Watt on the planet.
These kids are my world, and I have to protect them from the evil of the world. I shouldn't have to protect them from.
Now, this is another psychological concept in catastrophizing and histrionic thinking, and how everything is this big, huge life or death. There's no in between. There's no gray thinking with a narcissist. It is this and that, and it is their way or the highway. And this is what she's doing. She's doing this catastrophizing. Catastrophizing. I can't say it. It's after midnight. I'm a gremlin apparently, and I can't talk and say big words after midnight. But this is what she's doing. This is why it'd be really hard to psychologically analyze Shanann Watts. Because you could argue that she has histrionic personality disorder. You could argue that she has narcissistic personality disorder. You could argue that she had hallucinations. What were those razor blades? You could go down the line of schizoid thinking. You could say that she had factitious disorder, with her somatic symptoms in illnesses that she didn't have and the girls didn't have. Her moods were very unpredictable, unstable. It sounds like the classic bipolar where you walk on eggshells around them. You never know what's going to happen. When you are in a relationship with a bipolar person and you have the misfortune of living with them, the biggest fear you'll ever have is when you put your hand on the doorknob to go in that house and face them, as you never know what mood they're in. You never know. You never know if you're going to be greeted with a hello or you're going to be kicked in the... I lived that life, okay? I'm just saying.
Evil family, which of course becomes very ironic in a horrible way. Our kids deserve the same love and attention the other kids get, nothing less.
Oh, entitlement. Are we back to entitlement, ma'am? And what somebody thinks that they are owed and what they deserve? I think so, from the narcissist, the queen of narcissism. And seeing that evil and her not accepting responsibility for her actions and her overreactions. Classic narcissism. There is nothing in this that is suggesting that Pappa Ronnie is the narcissist, as is the title of your video, and you using these texts to prove your point, ma'am.
I'm not accepting I'm sorry from your mum because she doesn't mean it and she knew what she was doing. I made it very clear not to eat it around Celeste because she doesn't...
Okay. How would Shanann Watts know what Cindy Watts was thinking? How would Shanann Watts know how Cindy Watts was feeling about her apology, whether or not she was genuine? This mystical thinking is in with a narcissist, this magical, mystical thinking of where you think that you can tell what somebody else is saying and feeling. Not Pappa Ronnie, not Chris Watts, Shanann Watts. You don't know what Cindy Watts did. Now, within this text, this is the admission that there was no assault or perceived threat on Cece's life, because this is what it says. I made it very clear not to eat it around Celeste. Okay? What is it? Okay? We went from razor blades, pistachio ice cream in single cups, to a bowl of nuts at a table, to her giving a grocery list to Cindy that she didn't follow. She told Cindy what to do in Cindy's house. Cindy was hosting all of her grandchildren. Cindy has a relationship with her other grandchildren because they live in North Carolina. The parents of those grandchildren were not accused of embezzling a large sum of cash, maybe in a suitcase to put down for a house payment, and didn't have to leave the state and go and change the spelling of their name and lie low for 2 years. They were honest people, and so they had relationships with their grandparents where the grandparents lived, where it was convenient for them. So just because this is the first time that you've brought yourself and the kids back to North Carolina should not bear weight on how the other kids' relationship is with their grandparents. That's not their fault that they're closer. That's your fault. But of course, nothing is ever her fault. Now, again, I made it very clear not to eat it around Celeste. What did you make very clear? So what, you're going around hounding Cindy Watts, telling her what she can and cannot eat around and in front of Cece, and what the other kids can eat around and in front of Cece? Who the fuck do you think you are? This is Cindy's... Come on.
Understand way before that happened. She's evil and willing to risk your daughter's life just to get under my skin.
Look at that. Look at that. This creator has this episode called Analyzing Ronnie Watts' Interview Part 2, where she is making a case that Ronnie Watts is an evil narcissist with a very low IQ. She's using Shanann Watts' texts that prove her to be one of the most malignant narcissists of all time as a case study. And you somehow miss that part with these texts. These texts are strengthening your case here that this proves Ronnie Watts as a narcissist. Shanann said Cindy Watts is evil. Right here. Not only is she evil, but she is willing to risk little Cece's life just to get under Shanann's skin. So her giving ice cream to her other grandchildren was somehow a slight at Shanann. That was somehow a narcissistic injury to Shanann. Shanann was offended because Cindy Watts did not behave in her own home as to the rules that she gave her, because nobody ever questions what Shanann Watts says or does. Nobody ever puts her second to anything. These texts prove it. And you want to use this to show that this shows Ronnie Watts is a narcissist. Further, Shanann says, you and your dad are no different if you are okay with her behavior. What Shanann Watts, the narcissist, is doing here is triangling it in another way, putting Chris and his dad in a thing where they either love or they do not like Cindy. Cindy is her enemy at this moment. It will change at any time, because if Chris says, no, my mom was wrong and you are right, well then Shanann has triangled with Christopher against Cindy, okay? Now she's going to say, but what about your dad? What about your dad? And he's going to say, no, you're right. My dad was wrong by going along with her. So then Shanann has Chris against the dad. It's all 2 against 1. It's all forming these little battles, these little microaggressions that go into this, because a narcissist cannot just sit down, laugh, have a good time. Because why? Because they're miserable to the frickin' core, and they make other people's lives a living hell. And this is proof of it. It's disgusting what they did to the Watts. It's disgusting that Cindy Watts was doing nothing other than hosting a birthday party for her grandchildren and is now known as this greedy narcissist because of people like this creator.
You and your dad are no different if you're okay with her behaviour. I'm not going to be treated this way for having the balls.
Oh, here we go. So not only nuts, but balls. So Shanann Watts has the biggest balls ever that I'm not going to be treated this way for having the balls. Okay, Shanann, you have the biggest balls. You have everybody's balls. They're all in little jars up on a shelf, and every man that has ever came by, and apparently every woman, because your balls, some women refer to their balls as ovaries, but you apparently refer to them as balls. And so you have the big hairy balls here, and because of your big hairy balls and your nuts, you should get a gold effing medal for handling it the way that you did. I think it's mean. I think it's spiteful. I think it's disgusting. I think it's ungrateful. I think that you act entitled. Children Being loved by grandparents is a gift that doesn't have a price tag with it. To take that away from children is cruel. Let people love each other. Don't control it. Don't box it up in a way that you have to approve it and see if it fits into your schedule. They were doing nothing wrong. Cindy and Ronnie Watts did nothing wrong. They are the most innocent in this situation, and people like you have flipped the script to make it not look that way. Because to sell the truth takes more time than it does to sell a lie. When you sell something, it's because you're fueled with greed and you want money. If you follow the money in this case, it's pretty disgusting, because no amount of money is going to bring back those little girls. And these little girls had to be in the middle of these disgusting childlike fights over giving grandchildren ice cream. Like I say, it's a wonder that Bella and Cece went to a birthday party with Christopher Watts the night that the unthinkable happened, because Christopher Watts could maintain himself like an adult, like a respectful guest, and simply said, oh, well, she can't have that because it probably has that, so, you know. Somebody else brought up a really good point about how Shanann wouldn't even let the girls have their Halloween candy, that she took it when they got home and said that she was going to give them some bracelets instead. There are ways to manage a peanut allergy, and it isn't that. She wanted control, and she wanted to micromanage, and she used the allergies as an excuse. Just like she did baby-wise, just like she did the MLM, so she could just check out and be wherever she wanted and not make the house payment and make airplane tickets instead. And you've got 130,000 people believing the opposite. Here she is accusing Papa Ronnie of being stupid again, just like this creator did. It's cruel.
To protect our family and kids. I should get an effing medal for handling it the way I did, because I had a lot of choice words I wanted to say to her and your dad for his stupidity. No one stands up to your mum and your dad for that. He's just as guilty by not doing anything. I have nothing to do with him stop sharing memories of his grandkids. What does that have to do with me?
Okay. What? No one stands up to your mom and your dad for that. He is just as guilty by not doing anything. But you just said he was stupid. I have nothing to do with him. Stop sharing memories of his grandkids. Okay? What does that have to do with me? Ma'am, your sentences and your arguments don't even make sense because you take out words. I don't know why Shanann took out certain words out of certain sentences. I don't know where those words went. Maybe in the couch cushions? I don't know. But I have nothing to do with him. Stop sharing memories of his grandkids. Okay. What? Does that mean okay. Christopher Watts took down his Facebook page. Okay? So that's one problem. Shanann still had hers, and that was the vessel for her to be able to control what the grandchildren or the grandparents could see. If Cindy Watts and Ronnie Watts wanted to put up their boundaries and protect themselves and their feelings and kind of shut things away for a little bit, that was their right. If they got off of her Facebook because they didn't want to see the incessant posting of her acting like she's acting, the keyword acting, like she's this wonderful mother that's just so sweet that, you know, like I've seen Shiner say, oh, not a cruel word ever left her lips, did they? Okay. They didn't want to see it anymore. They didn't want to hear it anymore. They couldn't palate it, and they couldn't be a part of it anymore. They stepped away. They put up a limit. They put up a boundary. That's healthy. Narcissists do not understand nor recognize boundaries. And the fact that this creator is using this against Ronnie shows that she does not understand what a narcissist is. And what does that have to do with me? I didn't do this. I didn't do this. You did everything. You did everything. You made a big freaking mess. And you involved children into it. And I don't care what you did as an adult before you involved children into it. But when you involve children, you make me sick.
So she describes Cindy as evil, but Ronnie as stupid.
Well, let's talk about Bella's hair here for a second while we're on the topic. Cece's younger. And Cece's hair is a little bit longer, technically. Because Shanann was methodically cutting Bella's hair every 30 days, and if she misbehaved. She cut Bella's hair as a punishment because all Bella wanted was long hair. Now, as we can see, each of the girls has naturally curly hair, which, as her mother was a beautician, cosmetologist, you would think that Shanann would know that curly hair, wavy hair, needs to be cut in the ways that the curls go, and it needs to be cut dry and with the curl so it doesn't go shorter then. So when we see Shanann propping Bella up in the barber chair, barber vest, laying down her hair like she's doing a barber cut, a man's cut on Bella, she's not doing it right. Now, something I'm noticing here. Bella's earlobes are detached. Cece's are attached. Right? That's a trait on a DNA thing. I wonder if it's only on the paternal line. Gotta find that out. I said don't flash. Do you flash? You ever done that? You turn off the flash on the camera and it won't do it, and then you're like at an event or something and then it flashes and you're like, oh Lord. I know that there are a lot of people out there, and this is kind of off the topic, I'm sorry, but let's say that Bella and Cece do not share the same father. This picture is very curious as it supports that theory because they look more like friends and sisters in this. It's interesting. Shanann's beautiful in this picture, absolutely freaking beautiful. She had that charisma. She could, stop everybody in the room. I'm sure that she did. I'm sure that when she walked in the room, all the attention was there, even without, when you see all the pictures of the Thrive and stuff, where does your eye go naturally? To her. And it's no different than in this picture. But yeah, there's some real differences you can see in Cece and Bella in this picture with their facial characteristics. Eye shape. Ears. Chin. As always, go to Neeks Peaks. Look up DNA Hearsay. Neeks Peaks does the best jobs with her vignettes, her little masterpieces. Anyway, here I go.
Stupid, then it suggests he's not of the same mindset of Cindy, but he's putting up with it. He's allowing her to be like that. He's not doing anything about it. He's going along with it. He's blocking them on Facebook because of what Cindy wants.
What?
So there's a difference between him being stupid and Cindy being evil. And she talks about him being okay with Cindy's behaviour. So again, it's Cindy that is behaving in this way and he is okay with it. He's going along with it.
Okay. They are a married couple. That is Christopher Watts' mother and father. They should stand united and not play into the games of their daughter-in-law, who found it most important to split people apart. She's calling them stupid and evil. It was wise that Pappa Ronnie supported his wife. They don't need to have marital discord based on their daughter-in-law's childish issues.
The way she says it is as if she doesn't expect it, because otherwise she'd be saying that they're both evil, but she's saying that Ronnie's okay with Cindy's behaviour, as if he shouldn't be, as if he would be of a different mindset again. I get the feeling that Ronnie is someone who places so much importance on having a connection with the people in his life, that connection comes before anything else. And
what? Get it? I don't get it. I don't get it. She's sitting down, so how could she be pulling these ideas out of her ass? I don't get it.
He will be a flying monkey for them as long.
Narcissists employ flying monkeys. You are not a narcissistic flying monkey. Once again, that discredits the title of your whatever this is.
As long as it means that they need him and, and they're in his life.
What?
He seems like a very dependent person because
What?
he apparently started a coke habit
Yeah.
after his son Chris had left home. And apparently this was because he was so upset that Chris had left. And that's, Chris has talked about this in prison, but we don't really know the details. So that's why.
No, I've talked about it. It said he was sad that his son, his little boy, was everything. The Watts had a boy and a girl. They had Salt and Pepper. They had a perfectly matched set of kids, just like that. They got the boy, they got their girl, and and Pappa Ronnie loves his little boy, and he didn't know what to do. I mean, it's called a midlife crisis, because people, the empty nest syndrome. I mean, that's why I started a YouTube channel. My God, because I've got empty nest syndrome. You have to do something. I mean, I wasn't going to start a cocaine habit like Ronnie wants, but she's saying we don't know the details. So what do you want? Do you want to know how he cut it up, what he snorted it on, who his favorite dealer was? I mean, what details do you want? How is that relevant?
I keep saying apparently, we don't know any of this for sure. But it does seem certain that he did have this habit because Cindy didn't deny it. When she was talking about it over the phone to Chris, she was saying that the media were talking about it, but she didn't say that it hadn't happened. He's happy to say all these irrational things in order to show 100% that he supports Chris.
What irrational things did Pappa Ronnie say, ma'am? You lost me there. At the current and present time, I am massaging my temples because I don't know what you're talking about. What did Pappa Ronnie say that was irrational? Pappa Ronnie is hard to understand at times. He really mumbles. He's a mumbling. But there are people who mumble. Like they got mouthful mumbles, okay? They mumble. That's, who knows how the cocaine came. He could have been asking for something completely different. And it just happened at that. I mean, this little old man I know, he got arrested for he was going to the market to sell his melons, and as a gardener, farmer, locally, and he got arrested for prostitution. doesn't have any idea how it happened, how he got part of the sting, because all he was doing was he went to the market to sell his melons, and he mumbles too. So I think that sometimes the criminal behaviors happen from little old men who mumble. I mean, he could have been going down. He could have been wanting to do some recipes with a crock pot. He could have been out. I gotta go find a crock pot. They're like, you want some crack, buddy? Yeah, crock pot. There you go.
Not somebody who would only half support someone. You know, he's not someone who would express that they agree with some of someone's behaviour and not other aspects of it. We never hear him saying to his son that he shouldn't have done something, being in...
Now she's criticizing him for not saying to his son he shouldn't have done this. Papa Ronnie's got his hands on his forehead, kind of like I do right now, ma'am. Papa Ronnie's got his hands in his head, going, what in the... come on. And Chris is like going, yeah. I mean, like, come on. And they're both trying to say things without saying things out loud. And Papa Ronnie was trying to say they needed a lawyer. And the second that Papa Ronnie formed the full word, the Tamburglar swooped. So this creator is saying that because Ronnie Watts did not just bolt right up and say, son, that isn't right. Son, you shouldn't have done that. Because instead he's holding his head and trying to make sense out of what his son just said, because I don't think that many humans have experience hearing what Christopher Watts expelled from his mouth.
Any way judgmental towards Chris about anything at all, even the affair. He always seems to just flatter him and adore him. And Chris knows he can rely on that because he wants his dad with him in the police station. He doesn't want Cindy there. He wants his dad there.
Okay, dumbass. Cindy was back in North Carolina. Only Papa Ronnie boarded the plane and came out. Where are the ruse? Huh? Where are the ruse in this? They're back in North Carolina, able to form words and sentences that I wouldn't imagine anybody would be able to say because they're so horrible. But you know what? Shenan's mom's over there, just threatening all the police department, threatening all of them, telling them what to do, telling them what to investigate, where to look, how they should do this, when they should wrap it up. And if they don't, she's going to do this, and she's going to keep calling them and calling them and calling them and telling them to do this, telling them to do that, telling them irrelevant information about the wedding 8 years ago, and on and on. So because Cindy Watts stayed at home, Papa Ronnie got on the plane. Now that he's at fault, does that make him the narcissist that you say that he is, ma'am?
I don't think I've read it cover to cover twice yet, but I'm probably getting close. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's a good thing, son. We love you so much.
He sounds so excited and adoring of Chris. And
he loves his son. You can't stop the love for your children. You can't.
He seems to be someone who's good at making people feel good and special. And I think that's why his relationship with Cindy probably works. And that's how an enabler can behave. They're there to help a narcissist to get their narcissistic supply. And I think...
Look at you, ma'am. Okay, yeah, you know what you just did, and you're having a hard time swallowing your words right now. It's like a freaking bunch of crow pie that you're eating crow, aren't you? Because you just said it. You started this thing by saying that Papa Ronnie Watts was a big narcissist, and you just got done saying that he's an enabler and makes other people feel better and is approving and loving of them. That's not how a narcissist behaves, and you know it. You know it. You're trying to swallow those words. Yep, get a fork. get a fork, eat that crow right now, because you can't.
That's because he's learned that that's what love is. Love is always being okay with everything the person says and does.
No.
And I've talked about this.
Okay. That's unconditional love. It's a parent love. It is a strong love from a father to a son. It is a strong love from a mother to a son. Ronnie is not a narcissist. He is capable of warm and loving ways to his grandchildren, to his daughter, to his son, to his wife, to his daughter-in-law, who was an absolute freaking twat. I mean, come on.
In a video about narcissists, how they think in this way. Are you on my side? And that's all that matters. And I think Ronnie is someone who is used to needing to be on someone's side. So he's used to...
Okay, there again, she contradicted herself. She said that a narcissist has to know that you're on their side. The text that she showed, that Shanann commanded of Chris being on her side, of everybody being on her side, and if they're not on her side, then they're stupid and evil. That proves Shanann was the narcissist. That does not say that Pappa Ronnie is a narcissist.
Being around the kind of person who thinks in this way, where he is either completely for them or he's against them. So there's no room for criticism.
Okay. You're saying Pappa Ronnie is that way. Pappa Ronnie is either for them or against them. For them or against them. Pappa Ronnie's behavior. You're...
In a relationship like that, there's no room to show that you doubt the other person or that you have your own feelings about them and what they're doing that might not match with what makes them feel comfortable.
You know what? Now a little smirk here. The fact that he blocked Shanann and her stupid shenanigans from social media so he didn't have to see it says that he is capable of standing up for himself and saying that he doesn't believe in this way, and that he is able to say that he does not agree with that behavior, he is not comfortable with that behavior, and he is able to identify how he feels, once again showing he is not the narcissist Shanann Watts was.
You know, you have to be in complete agreement and okay with everything they do and say. And this all makes sense because Cindy comes across to me as someone who wouldn't put up with any less. I think she is really narcissistic. And I've looked at why in different videos. I've looked at the things she's said that prove to us.
Yeah. You're giving me a brain cramp. Let's focus on you trying to prove that Ronnie Watts is the narcissist before you go back to Cindy as the narcissist, because I had to talk to you about that last week when we went through all of the legal documents that show who it was that ran to court, who it was that was doing what. That it was trying to ask a higher court how to determine who got the life insurance that was Christopher Watts in the interpleader, and you had it mixed up because you were saying the Watts ran to the court and they were greedy and everything. And I showed you that it was not the Watts, it was the ruse. And the ruse went before the ink was dry on Christopher Watts getting his deal. They had all their attorneys right there, ready to go. And they had already taken a significant amount of money from the estate for them, for their grieving, they identified themselves as the victim of the crime. You do not hear the Watts identifying themselves as the victims of the crime. You do not hear the Watts saying that they need this much money to cover lost income, that they need this for this, that they need this for this, that they need this for this, that they need a $6 million judgment so any and all monies that ever come go straight to them, that they need this GoFundMe, that they need this. And now I'm understanding that they're saying that they needed this last GoFundMe because the graves of the girls need renovation. I go to Pioneer graveyards And see, I've done this since I was a teenager. I have seen graves from the 1800s. I was sitting there trying to clean off a grave of a Civil War veteran when a bunch of red ants ran up my ass because I was wearing short shorts and a hot day. It was terrible. And then the same ghost locked my door, so I had to crawl in my convertible in front of all the traffic and then set off my alarm and was honking really loud repeatedly at the graveyard with a bunch of red ants up my ass. What I'm saying is, if graves can be okay from the 1800s, when people were forging this land of ours, I don't think that the girls' graves need renovation here 4 to 5 years into it. What do they really need that money for? That wood fire pizza oven that they built not tending to their grief appropriately? I don't see the Watts building an outdoor kitchen. Oh, I see the Watts' other adult child still being functional, not attacking 2-year-olds, having criminal convictions for child abuse, but Anyhow.
How narcissistic she is. An enabler has usually grown up with a parent who's a narcissist, or at least very narcissistic. So they're used to this black and white way of thinking and these invisible rules that...
Okay. She's back to talking about black and white thinking, referring to it as Papa Ronnie. No, we saw it literally in the black and white texts that Shanann had wrote, her black and white thinking. That's Shanann Watts did that. I don't know how you lost that concept.
They have to follow in order for this parent to be pleased with them. And so I think Ronnie will have probably grown up having already followed these rules. So he's found somebody who matches what's familiar to him.
No.
And now he's playing by her rules, which are probably very similar rules. He lets Cindy interrupt him over and over again. He's okay with that. That's how their relationship works, I think. Her needs...
You have to overtalk dumb people. I'm doing it right. I'm kidding. I kid.
Come first, and that's what they're both comfortable with. The family of a narcissist, just like a cult, need to believe in the illusions of the narcissist, because if they don't, there's a risk that the narcissist...
Okay. She's now saying that Papa Ronnie here, look at him. She's now saying that he's like a cult member, because he's this big narcissist and he makes people believe that they have to have this black and white thinking and that he must have been raised by a narcissist to have that kind of thinking. So, you might as well just call Papa Ronnie David Koresh.
Might have to actually face what's really wrong with them. And they might have to face reality. And that's much too dangerous for a narcissist to do. They live their whole lives around trying to avoid the truth about themselves and trying to keep their false selves alive. And very often they will be so blinded to this person.
Oh God, look at how Papa Ronnie is aged. Man.
They themselves will be as deluded as the narcissist. They'll be so obsessed with keeping this fantasy alive that the narcissist is this really all-important being, that they themselves will believe in this, and they will be addicted.
Okay, so if you're as confused as anybody would be at this point, look at this man. This man who's had his heart pulled out. The difference in appearance of this man from what you've seen from videos 5 years ago when he was playing with his grandchildren, and what he is now 5 years, the grief took the color from his hair. It's completely white, silver. His eyes, the bags under his eyes have bags. His whole face is drooping. His whole skin, even by his ears. You can tell that this man is doing everything that he can to put one foot in front of the other foot to stay alive for his wife. Because both have thought about not being with us any longer on this place and have hoped. They've said that they've hoped that they would not wake up. They're doing what they can. They know that their son is not seeing sunshine, is not able to speak freely, is not free because of the mistruths and the inappropriate action of another. However it comes down to be, we do have a judicial system that allows for an affirmative defense. So even if he did the unthinkable, there are circumstances, mitigating circumstances, that could allow for a trial to occur under a 35C and lay the shit bare. Put all of the facts and all of the truth out there. Let this man hear the truth before he dies. Let this woman have hope in her heart that she can hold her son with her arms before she sees Jesus. Parents are broken. These are not narcissistic monsters. These people deserved happiness. They did things right. They lived within their means. They raised a son who was a good provider, who lived within his means. He got caught up with somebody who had a history of having to make things look a certain way to be appreciated and approved by her parents. When we want to talk about narcissistic parents and narcissistic lineage, it's in her side, not his. Leave the Watts alone. Do not call them thieves. Do not call them greedy. And do not call them narcissists. It doesn't take a lot to see who's telling the truth in the situation. You have to look. You have to take the scales off your eyes. There's been a lot of people who have made a lot of money on this case by giving a false narrative. It's time to no longer feed into that. It's time to not throw money into that anymore. It's time to look at these people and see the pain and understand that the pain in these people makes me do what I do. I had somebody today write on my thing about what a piece of shit I am, and I need to get a hobby and not do this. My legacy of being the mother of 6 children, 5 sons, this is what I need to do so that, God forbid, nobody in my legacy ever goes to prison unnecessarily without the truth and the facts being heard, so that they will know how to act, how to behave if they are ever falsely accused. Because I believe that Christopher Watts has a story to tell. I don't think he's innocent. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there were a lot of factors that built up, and there's a lot of things that a lot of people in the same position might have done something similar. He snapped. But why? What caused it? What was in those silly stickers? How long did he go without being able to sleep because he had to... Not going to go into it. He needs to stand up and fight. How can he see his parents looking like this and not stand up and fight? He has nothing to lose.
To people like this. If Chris really did murder his children, what would that mean about Cindy and the way she's parented him?
Yeah, what would it mean? What would it mean? You said that a narcissist sees themselves as their children's behavior. Their children's behavior defines them. But then you're questioning how Cindy would be because she unconditionally loves her child. Her behavior would be no different. Once again, that contradicts your argument that these are the narcissists. Cindy Watts loves her child no differently. She understands he's not 100% innocent. But we have to go to our definition of innocent by the letter of the law.
So Ronnie's job is to keep the fantasy alive, this fantasy that they're a really good family and anything terrible that happened came from an outside force.
Does he look like he's trying to feed a narrative that they're a wonderful family? Dumbass.
Because they're blinded to who the narcissist
Who's blinded to what a narcissist is? You. How can you can you look at the Watts and say these things? How?
really is. They can also be blinded to what is reality, you know. They can...
This woman. That now they don't even have a grasp on reality. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Not be able to judge the narcissist's opinions very well. An enabler can be so enmeshed with a narcissist that they don't have their own moral compass anymore. So they rely on...
Okay. Now she's bringing up a psychological term called enmeshment. Okay. There is nothing saying that the Watts have any type of enmeshment with their son. Enmeshment is a psychological term that we can discuss on another day. Enmeshment is where you don't know where you end and the other begins, that the behavior is the same. I can give a real good example here in this story of paternal enmeshment between a mother and daughter, but I'm not going to.
What the narcissist thinks of as right, as being the right thing to do. And they might know somewhere deep down that something feels a bit mean, you know, something feels a bit wrong, but they need to do it because pleasing the narcissist will always come first for them. I hope that was useful. If you haven't subscribed, please...
No, it was not useful. No, don't give me that look. I am not going to subscribe. In fact, you know what? I'm going to put a freaking thumbs down. I dislike this. Okay? I dislike this. Okay? Ma'am, I am all about people learning and whatnot, and I just ask that you take down your things calling Papa Ronnie a narcissist. I can't disprove your information as easily as I could with the court documents and how you had that all ass backwards. Just... No. I did not find this useful. see what else you got to say. Throw one more thing. Throw one more thing before my brain cramps.
Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.
Don't threaten me.
Hello. In the last video, I talked about how...
Stop. All right. Anyway. Okay. We will call this a day. As we are approaching the weekend, I hope that you all are, maybe you live in an area where you go to a nice fish fry on Friday night. We did that last Friday, the first Friday of Lent. So, in our area, the VFW and Lions Club, they all have them, and I tend to like them. So, that's my wish for you, is that you'll go to a nice fish fry Friday. I've got a lot of talking to this creator. As you can see, me and her are going to have several conversations like this. You know, we're just doing therapy with each other here. Completely possible that she can put a strike on my channel. I'm doing this under the Fair Use Copyright Act of 1970. Well, I can't talk right now. But I'm doing this under the fair use, and YouTube is created for that. People do this so she can strike me. And so if you see my channel down or anything like that, or these videos going down, it will just take a process where Facebook will go through and make sure that I did not just replay that person's content and claim it as mine, because y'all know that I did not. So if that happens, we're prepared for it, as in me and you. Otherwise, enjoy it while you can see it. And I will end on this note. Boo was a really good boy. I gave him a good snack before I started recording. Him and Big Mama Kisses shared a good snack. Mama Kisses, baby scoundrel, is sleeping on my head at night now, and so she bops me with her tail through the night, has her little sneezes, bops me when she wants me to reach up and pet her, and Boo pretty much sleeps, you know, on my belly still, pretty much. Ma Kisses will come up to the top of my pillow and command me to massage her for a few hours at a time, and then when she's done, she'll bite my hand. I've asked her to just kind of give a little tail bop or something, but the big bite of the hand comes no matter what. So, that's my life as a cat lady, with my empty nest syndrome. Anyway, thanks for listening as always. And if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please do. I love knowing how many people are being a part of the solution and are understanding a discussion. And I am so excited, as I had one of y'all say that you had listened to this creator before. I think it was this creator or something when they were a shiner, and I may not have been technically a shiner. I don't know, because kind of how I came into this, kind of wondering about how any of this made sense, that she was purported as a stay-at-home mom and a nurse. Don't even get me started on the nurse thing. But so I might have been technically a shiner, but it's good that you know, one of ours now on this side of Watts Island is a reformed shiner, and I think that part of our group, you know, really should be dedicated to that, is to welcome reformed shiners and show shiners that we may have all been shiners at one point, but we've evolved and are now part of understanding the truth and always working to make sure that only the guilty are put in prison. Cages are not good for animals, and they're not good for humans, and we need restorative justice, and we need preventative justice, and we need to stop things before they ever happen. And that's my goal, is to make a better world so that the Cece's and the Bellas of the world are taken out of situations before they're a part of it. What the adults do, the adults need to sort out, but the kids had no business in that, and it's sad that none of the adults spoke up, except for Cindy Watts. Cindy Watts did speak up, and she's been vilified, and it's time to fix that. So thank you for being part of the solution. If you are a reformed shiner, how many days have you been shiner free? Maybe we should get some coins, and at the 30-day no shiner mark, I'll send you a gold coin or something. Anyway, thanks for all of the love that you guys always provide me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.